Om Agnir Morta Chakshusi Chandrasuryo Vishaha Shrotrivag Vivita Shavedaha Vayu Prana Hridaya Vishvamasha Padbayam Prativihi Sarvabhutantaratma Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Verily, that one supreme being is the indwelling consciousness in all things. Fire is its head, the sun and moon its two eyes. The revelation of Scripture is its cosmic mind. The universe is its heart, its arms and legs, the four directions. The wind is its breath, music is its voice, and from its feet the earth has originated. Om peace, peace, peace. Om apyayantu mamangani vak pranishchakshuhu shrotramatra balamindriyani chasarvani sarvam brahma upanishadam mahabrahma nirakuryam mama brahma nirakaroda nirakara namastva nirakaranam mayastu tadatmani nirati ya upanishatsu namaste maishantu te maishantu. Om shanti shanti shanti. May our bodies experience great health. May our life force, our prana, flow unimpeded. May our minds expand in their capacity to know Brahman, the reality. For the Upanishads state that all existence is Brahman. Therefore, may we never deny Brahman, and may Brahman never deny us. May there be no rejection ever of Brahman by us. We, who are dedicated to the realization of the Atman, the soul within. May all divine qualities cited in the Upanishads also reside within us. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Sahana. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai Tejasvi Navaditamastu Ma Vidvishovahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman, the reality, protect us. May Brahman sustain us. May Brahman illumine our thinking process. May we not find fault with each other, with the world, or with the teachings. And may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us. May peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. And this peace, 3 times over, peace, 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 shanti, 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 is what we get once we delve deeply into the Dharmic teachings and begin to comprehend them and apply them to our lives. You were just saying before the live streaming audience joined us, welcome all, here at the SRV ashram in Waimea on the big island of Hawaii, out in the middle of the ocean, thousands of miles away from any other landmass, surrounded by the Ganga Pacifica. We call her the Holy Pacific Ocean, which is our sacred waters. And we were just saying before the live streaming audience joined us that spiritual life is a matter of being introduced to these teachings, and then, as our chart from the past classes, to increase our stamina in the teachings, and then to intensify and build some capacity for holding the teachings, and that kind of holding of the teachings will then be called retaining the teachings. You have to be able to retain the gist or the essence of what you hear. It's really much like Shravana, Shruti and Shravana and Nididhyasana, or Manana, Shravana, Nididhyasana. Manana means with the mind, you expose your mind to these teachings, because the mind, manas, is dual by nature, so it has to try and find the single eye. Then Shravana, is also used there. You hear it. Shravanendriya is the sense of hearing, so you must hear it with your ears. It's the most subtle of all of our senses, according to our way of thinking of it in Vedanta. A lot of people think the eyes are most important or something. A lot of people act like the sense of touch is most important. They're attached more to those. But you have to follow the scheme of the 5 elements with the 5 senses, right? If earth is the grossest, then it has to go with smell. And if the next subtlest of all the elements is water, it has to go with taste. And then if fire is the next element on the list, inwardly speaking, or gross to subtle, then has to go with sight. So sight is only 3rd in the level of these senses as far as their subtlety. And then you get to touch. It's very important also. That goes with air. And finally you come to ether, which is hearing, the vibrations that cross the ethers and so forth at least on the fundamental level, base level. Gross level. Gross not meaning horrible, but meaning apparent, most apparent of all. So those follow the scheme of the 5 elements. You'll find that hearing is very, very important, most important to the aspirant. In fact, hearing the sound of Om will be something that one will experience eventually. And sometimes people, they call it beginner's luck, hear it right at the beginning of their spiritual life. Just like some people see the light right at the beginning. That's called beginner's luck. Don't make too much out of it. Even the Buddhists and the Vedantist teachers all say, go forward on past those first signs, because once you awaken spiritual life, then the gunas will also become very much in play in that spiritual life. They were very much in play in your earthly life, weren't they? As sleepiness and restlessness and some balance you got. Now they're going to become into operation also in your spiritual life, and you'll be aware of stodginess. That's one of the 9 impediments in yoga, according to Patanjali, this kind of complacency or heedlessness, they sometimes liken it to. And then you'll become aware of the mind's racing, frenetic energy, rajas. Then you'll become aware that there's also sattva, or balance, to be attained in spiritual life, which is a higher happiness. It's kind of like mated up with contentment, but it's not joy or bliss yet. It's not the deepest element of things. So here's a reminder for everyone: turn off your cell phones, as we often say in other areas of life. We're just talking about the other areas of life. That's where the sense of sound might become a little bit problematic if it distracts. So back to the point there, then, this inner subtleties of things are to be taken account of in their order and meditated on in their order, and then we'll find out how important hearing is and seeing is. That is, we were just saying, hearing the sound of Om and seeing the light within, light of consciousness. Seeing is inward in that case. You don't see the light of consciousness with your eyes. You see the light of the sun and light of fire and lightning and outward glares. But this subtle inner light you have to meditate on to feel it introduce itself to you. See? So that's going to take some time, and the beginner's luck problem of that is that it may happen to you right away when you first meditate in this lifetime. But then you start meditating and you're beginning to pull karmas and samskaras from previous lifetimes, and those come with a price. That's why you've been born here, is because you're still working these out. Some of them have to work them out on a very gross level, with evils and sufferings and so forth that are almost unbelievable in many cases. War-torn areas and people born in very horrific conditions, physically and mentally and so forth. Other people are working them out just on the basic level of desire. There's some scars that are rather desire-based, and some people then higher desires. They're wanting to, like those people that came last night to our center and wanted to experience a puja, because they wanted to have some worship. That's 4th of July, right? So they're looking for inner fireworks, and they're done with the outer fireworks. So that shows they're working out their subtler desires. They want to know what worship is like. They want to know what dedicated people are like in this world of distraction and worldliness and ignorant actions and so forth. So that's indicative of an inner movement that's going on. Finally, samskaras themselves begin to disappear, or you find people that have samskaras of meditation. See, all of a sudden they sit and they don't have just beginner's luck, but their luck extends right away back into their luck, as it were, extends right away back into their samskaras of meditation. Father of Yoga Patanjali mentions those, that people can draw from their earlier meditations, and that's where you get past masters. It's a nice phrase, past master. And these luminaries that come don't seem to have to do any practice, and it seems unfair. Why do we have to practice? They don't, kind of thing. And you don't see them having to go through the early stages of yoga, like hatha and pranayama and practices like that. Their prana is already under control. Their bodies have been fashioned by a mind that's illumined, so their bodies are fine for as long as they're going to want them before they abandon them consciously. And they're, as we just chanted, their life force is flowing unimpeded. They're able to do their works without undue attachments and without getting off balance, and staying equal-minded no matter what comes, no matter what may come. See, good, bad, pleasure, pain, life, death. So that's a higher ideal. You see, people who have realized a higher ideal. So a lot of that has to do with this hearing and then considering, building up a capacity, and then hearing the truths on a deeper level, and then retaining what you hear. Sri Ramakrishna used a nice story of feeding pigeons from the park bench. You see, and you're feeding, maybe brought some frozen peas or some grains or whatever, and you're gathering a whole herd of followers around you, you see. And you think, oh boy, I'm going to feed them, and this will be good for me, and it'll be good for them, and aren't I great? So you feed them. And then before you leave, you're feeling quite good about yourself, and you pick up one of the pigeons in your hand and you examine it, see, and you see that all the grains and peas that you fed them are stuck in its craw, you see. They're there, you see, and they haven't been digested. Well, I mean, I hope you can see the ramifications of that story being told by a great master, past master like Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, is that people take the teachings like grains and peas from the guru who's feeding them, but they don't digest them. The guru probably thinks, oh, that was great. They heard all that. They understand it completely, you see. And now they can go into their lives and just wait to see what happens. I can hardly wait to see the light shining off them. I can hardly wait to hear about all their spiritual realizations, see. But no, I've got more problems coming up, you see. I can't manage this. I didn't understand that, and so forth. So, yes, fine, keep on the path. Keep the perseverance going, as Holy Mother would say. But they haven't digested it. It's still stuck in the craw, you see. So that's the idea here about learning how to retain the teachings. And if you want to put it on a level of prana, then you open up a channel in you, and you keep it open. That's probably one of the best examples. If you're talking, shifting more out of the Jnana Yoga sphere into the Kundalini Yoga sphere, in Kundalini you want to get this prana flowing through all the nerves, and you've come to know from your teachers that these nerves flow inwardly as well as out. Out means into the body, carrying blood and so forth, and nutrients to the organs. That's the work of the several of the 5 outer pranas, you see. But those 5 pranas have subtle constituents, subtle correlatives to them, and those move inward. Your breath is one of the reasons why you use the breathing, as we looked at 2 weeks ago, purify the prana, control the prana, and raise the prana, is that you want that prana to flow and open up new nadis. Here, it's not like you're creating a new nerve. It's more like blazing a path that was overgrown. You went through with a machete. You know this in Hawaii, all the rain and sun here, you see, in this little hot house here, out in the middle of the ocean, surrounded by water, rained on by that 3rd element, or that 2nd element, that's connected to sense of taste, thirst, and so forth. And we know that's true here, so you could blaze a trail 1 month or come back a few months later and you might be able to see where the trail once was, but you have to reblaze it, take the machete and go through again if you want to keep that trail open. Much like that, people have blazed trails to samadhi, have blazed trails to meditation, have blazed trails to concentration, have blazed trails to control of the sense objects by the mind, have blazed trails to other spiritual efficiencies. See, they've become accomplished in other lifetimes, but perhaps being born into Kali Yuga in the modern times with all the problems of the day and age, see, that we won't go into here, but you're all well aware of. Maybe some of those trails have overgrown, you see. So this is my point. If you want to retain the teachings, be able to have the facility of remembering them, smriti rupena samstita, she exists as memory in the hearts and minds of all beings. We even sing that to the mother, right? Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Chaitaneti Abhidiyate Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Smriti Rupena Yam Samstita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Ya Devi Namo Namaha. Ya Devi Namo Ya Devi Namo Namaha, Ya Devi Namo Namaha. And that stotram goes on and on and on. You see, exciting all her qualities. Smriti was the one in that verse that came up in memory, in my memory. Smriti means memory. So if you want to have access to divine memory, say your past lifetimes, those lifetimes where you learned the Dharma, those lifetimes where you sat in the presence of holy beings, of past masters maybe, like the direct disciples of these avatars did, you want to recall that, then it's going to be, as far as we're concerned, although a little after the fact, a matter of reblazing some trails. So those trails are nerves. You might as well think of them as nerves going inward. They're channels, and there's a word for them in Sanskrit. They're called nadis. The yogis know about them, most other beings don't. And that's why India, from time out of mind, has known that death is an illusion. And they know where their ancestors go, so they worshipped them. See, they know how the dynamics of the soul moving from birth to life to death work, how that operates. It's not an ultimate truth, but it's a relative truth, and it's a relative truth that most beings and most cultures of this day and time have no inkling about whatsoever. They're not interested in it. They're not worshipping their ancestors anymore. They're not worshipping the deities anymore, the gods and goddesses. Because if you talk about earth water, fire, air, and ether, as far as we're concerned, those are goddesses and gods. You see, those are deities to worship. This is just their outer manifestation. But if you trace where they came from, you'll find that these deities are back in the great mind. And they're sensitive. If you don't worship them, you might have problems with earth. You might have problems with floods. You might have problems with conflagrations, fires. You might have problems with polluted air. You see? So you keep it all very sacrosanct, you see, very sacred, and give everything its due. You deify the entire world as if it were Brahman, at least until you come upon a state of mind in which you can see it all as Brahman. You'll have to pass through some emptiness first, right? Some emptiness. So here's a story for you. There are two friends, see? And one friend, they met after a long time. So one friend was carrying a beautiful ornate jar. So a friend said to his other friend, "What a beautiful container there in your hands. Can I have it?" Mm-hmm. And his friend said, "No, you can't have it right now. Sorry." And so the friend said, well, obviously disappointed, he said, "Well, can I inspect it? Can I hold it?" He said, "Well, certainly you can. Here." So he gave the friend this jar. And the man began to inspect it, all the beautiful artwork on it and so forth. And as he was inspecting it all, then he opened up the lid off the jar and looked in. And he looked at his friend. He saw the jar didn't have anything in it. So he looked at his friend and said, "Oh, I see, this is empty." And his friend said, "Now you can have it." He wouldn't give it to them before he knew it was empty. But when he found out it was empty, then he would give it to them. That's realization of emptiness. See, when you realize the world is completely empty of substance, then you're ready for the world to be real. You're ready for the jar to be given to you. But not until. They won't hand it over to you until you realize that everything here is empty of substance. Shunyata, it's called in Buddhism. Neti neti in Vedanta. But once you realize that it's completely empty, you can have it then. See? And which is instanced by these great seers and sages and so forth who are dancing in ecstasy. Even though they've realized the world is not real, is not true, is not lasting, is ever changing, is lacking in substance. You could say, if you want to be kind to the teaching, it's lacking in substance, but it's not lacking in essence. There's no substance in these things. Even quantum physics has told you about objects, what they consist of. Shifting sand, as Christ would put it, or atomic particles and subatomic particles changing at a billionth of a second. That's hardly a very long time for you to get a grasp on them. That's why you can't hold them, why you can't know an object. You can't have an object, because it's not real, number one, and number two, it's a projection of your own mind. And in fact, it's a projection of hundreds and thousands of other minds along with yours. Mm-hmm. These are things you have to realize, which is why you have to hear the truth and retain it. See? So that whenever you go into an experience of life, good, bad, or mixed, you can immediately default to that wisdom. See? Then you can have the world. Because then you can quit being burned by it, you see. And you can accept it as it is, in all its imperfections, perfect in its imperfections. You know, the jar that was given to the friend by the other friend was ornate and beautiful. That's the world. On the outside, ornate and beautiful. On the inside, it's birth, growth, disease, old age, decay, and death, because that's what nature does. Nature is majoring in the 6 transformations all the time. It's called Maya in Vedanta. So, all of this then to say, when we get to a level of psychic prana, which is where we arrived last week and started to talk about some of these concomitants that come to you or that get revealed by opening up these inward nadis of the mind, knowledge nadis, jnana nadis, wisdom. Then you begin to draw close to Shakti power. And that gives you a great advantage in your spiritual life over people who are unaware of Mother Wisdom. Divine Mother herself is the great ideal to you at that point. And you become dedicated to her and you give your life away. You see, you surrender yourself. See? Swamiji even sings about that in his songs. He would say, Advaita samahita chetam projvala bhakti patavrita vritam Advaita samahita chetam projvala bhakti patavrita vritam karma kalevaram adbhuta chestam karma kalevaram adbhuta chestam yami gurum sharanam bhava vaidyam yami gurum sharanam bhava vaidyam Naradeva Deva Jaya Jaya Naradeva where you sing. So what does it mean in terms of where we've arrived on this chart? Self-surrender, somewhere in between the psychic prana being under our control and the realization of Divine Mother power. What does it mean? I surrender my entire life, my mind and my soul to the Divine Lord who appeared in human form and whose superhuman actions are inconceivable to mortals, whose life reveals and exemplifies non-dual truth, and who removes the incapacitating effects of relative existence. Incapacitating effects, those things that stymie us, that stultify us, that stop us in our tracks. Swamiji sings, how did I get over that? I make a complete offering of myself to my Guru. Sri Ramakrishna in this case was his Guru, you see. And also says he's an infinite ocean of Shakti whose love floods the being and destroys all doubts and who is the ultimate healer of the chronic disease of worldliness. The ultimate healer is that. See, that great soul born. And that great soul is the son of the mother. We saw in Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa that his ideal was Mother Kali, the Divine Mother of the universe. So if he made a complete offering of himself to Divine Mother Kali, and then Swamiji came along and made a complete offering of himself to Sri Ramakrishna, then what shouldn't we come along and make a complete offering of ourselves to Swami Vivekananda, see, who came here to the West to save us from these various things. And that's why we worshipped him last night on the 4th of July, when he passed into Mahasamadhi. And although we didn't do a puja because we don't really worship death, we worship the birth of these great souls. Nevertheless, we did an observance, and we did some readings, and we sang a few songs in honor and remembrance of Swami Vivekananda. And therefore, we worship him, see, and he feels that worship through the elements, through the five senses, through the prana, through the mind, through these nadis that we just opened up by singing the song. See? We sang some 12 or 13 verses of the Vivekananda Pranjali, which is actually on YouTube now. Of course, you can see that, our rendition of it. So don't you think sitting and singing those verses to Swamiji doesn't open up nadis into your devotional heart, you see, your higher mind, with all the wisdom that are in them? Certainly it does, but are you going to keep them open the next day? See? This weekend you are, because you came here. Yeah. Both Saturday and Sunday. Usually we're here only together on Sunday to taste the Dharma, taste the nectar of the Dharma. But this weekend we had a 4th of July, inner fireworks kind of thing, so we worship. So this is a little bit about what it's like, you see, self-surrender. Very difficult for many people to manage that jump, you see, because they have to surrender their personal ego, the ahamkara, see. And it's very difficult to do. But Sri Ramakrishna says the ego only becomes ripe and therefore not a problem anymore when you surrender it. As long as it's unripe, you see, it's selfish. It wants only its own good and doesn't care about others and so forth. And it doesn't have any devotion to its true nature. See, that's been removed. Those nadis have been closed. Then not so, you see. Then the ego is going to become a huge demon, see, with long nails as sharp as winnowing hooks. You can go into poems and songs about the ego and how the Divine Mother of the Universe goes on the battlefield and destroys those egos. So we reach that level of self-surrender after we have done all this, you see. In most cases, this is rather a kind of a more classic or traditional way of putting it. As we said before, people do these in different orders. Sometimes the teachers of yoga and so forth will focus you right on the prana. Say, well, all of this will even out in you. You're a good person. It'll even out in you if you have a little quirks still, little inconsistencies in you. If you just get a hold of the prana and start it moving, purify it. You have to purify it, because when the prana is pure, it's like electricity flowing into an appliance, and the whole thing is operating right. But if the electricity is jagged, you see, and it's not being toned down and controlled and sent along the right channel, then it's going to harm the appliance. So this prana quite often harms people. See, it's ragged edged. And you see people like that with huge desire for life, lots of prana flowing, and they're just burning themselves out with it. See, prana is one of the greatest addictions there is. In fact, if you have an addiction to alcohol or drugs or sex or food or whatever it is that the addictions are out there, it's actually the prana that's providing all of those things for you. And you're getting addicted to the prana. It's called life force. Where would life be without life force, you see? So you can jump in, and so oftentimes they do. In terms of the Westerners, they either give you some teachings on the prana or they give you a mantra. And those are both things that you want to implement quickly, you see, in your life as a Western advocate of yoga and a devotee of Divine Mother or Shiva or Vishnu, Krishna, or whoever else is your ideal. You want to implement those things swiftly. And all the rest of this might even out. Your posture will come together if your life force is flowing. Your stamina will start building because these nadis have been opened. You can do this in somewhat of a reverse form. Ideally, this is from lower truth to higher truth. Asato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya. From the cradle to the grave, from mrityur ma amritam gamaya, from death, from birth to death. But these past masters that have come along, they're coming into it with Shakti power at the beginning. They're coming into it already meditating on the ideal. Probably had lifetimes with it. Like I said last week, Sri Ramakrishna looked at his 16 apostles and said, well, few of those were with Christ 1800 years ago. I had a vision and I saw those are Christ disciples back then. Those over there, those few, were with Chaitanya in 1400. So we're to think that there's these, they're called Ishvara Kotis, that they attend upon Ishvara from lifetime to lifetime if they take lifetimes at all. So this is some of the inner dynamics that reveal to us these huge nadis. How about the main nadi? which is like a huge freeway shooting through the 7 centers to the very top, the Sahasrara, see, along which billions of souls pass to get to their destinations inwardly. See? It's sort of dreamlike to us here, see? But when you begin to meditate on your dreams, you realize that this is dream number 2, and that's dream number 1. As Ramana Maharshi said, oh, that's the real dream. If I can get there and awaken in there, in that dream, then this dream will become nothing but Brahman. If I even retain the body, speaking about retaining things. Quite often, Sri Ramakrishna said, if you have that highest samadhi, then your body, you abandon your body like a leaf in a blown off leaf in a gale. So you just give it up without, you see. And you're yourself again, without any limitations, the limitations that the body forces upon you by its very nature. By nature. Nature itself is a form-producing machine. Look at the insects, plants, animals. The other 3 constituents of our Bhutakasha here, see, plants, insects, and animals, they're also there. So, a little bit then to reorient us to self-surrender. Now, if you want to refer back to this chart, because we're sort of taking these 2 new charts together, and I will be showing these on my mainland visit later this month and next month in classes there. If you want to review them, I'll be introducing these to the SRB Sanghas in San Francisco and in, that is at the retreat in San Francisco, and to the Portland Sangha in Oregon. And to some of the people I teach in prisons also are very interested in this inner freedom, this eternal freedom. Naturally they would be, because their external freedom has been taken away. So it's an opportunity to live in an ashram called a prison and have a guru called a warden and do the austerities called difficulties and study the Dharma if it's brought into them. They make very good students, many of them. So if we refer back to this chart, you can see how we looked at yesterday some of the facets of self-surrender. We can easily segue from this chart, the self-surrender portion, to worship of the great master, you see, of the avatar, of your chosen ideal, or of Ishvari, the divine mother of the universe. We said maintain a shrine and altar, burn candles and incense, offer flowers there, sing to the Lord, offer puja and arti, like we were doing last night in terms of arti. That all pretty much is what helps you affect self-surrender. What's the Sanskrit word for self-surrender? Sharanagata. See, is a good word to use. Sharanagata dinartha paritrana parayane sarva sharti hare devi narayani namostute. See, I surrender myself to Narayani, the Divine Mother, who has appeared to us in this age as Sri Sharada Devi, who's on this chart. She used to look at the moon at night. She said, the beauty of those days when I was practicing that sadhana. She'd look at the moon and say, "O Lord, may my mind be as pure as the moon." Or, even better yet, the moon has stains on it. I can see them. May my mind be even purer than the moon. So that's this image that was put together inspired me to fill in the blanks that weren't there in the image. And so if we see self-surrender precedes by this outer worship. Now what about japa of the mantra, which we were just mentioning? They either give you prana exercises, or they'll give you the mantra to quicken up, swiffen up this process of getting your nadis open, of attaining the ever-awake state. Yogic insomnia, as our founder Alexei used to call it. So what's that? To repeat from last week, you know the mantra's meaning and you repeat it with intensity. See, it's not enough just to know the mantra and repeat it. You have to know its meaning and repeat it with intensity. That's how she would put it. Because people came to her after getting the mantra, and these were Hindu men and women there in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and so forth, when she became the mother of the organization, the Sangha, Janani. They would come to her she had given him the mantra and said we'd come back and say, it's not working. And she'd say, how long have you been practicing it? 2 days, a week. He said, oh, no, my dear, you must repeat this longer, and you must try and repeat it with intensity. And Sri Ramakrishna had told her earlier, and told the devotees, if you cry jugs of tears for the world, but you don't cry one sincere tear for God realization. So that's that kind of intensity you want to try and muster. See, you want to sit by yourself at this sacred place, take the beads out, and with the mantra, concentrate on your Ishtam and weep. One of my students, a young man about 20 or so in Europe right now, lives in Europe. He wrote me the other day and said, I saw the new music video from SRV, it made me weep. See, Jaya Jaya Rama Krishna. See, that one we just put out. He said, it made me weep. And then later in his message he said, I saw your live streaming class too. See. So I wrote him back and I said, because he asked me the question in the email, he said, what's the best attitude to put on for this? See. And how do I increase, intensify my spiritual life? And he said, when you write to me next time and say that, just like you wept tears to see the music video, but that when you write to me and say I wept when I watched your live streaming class, then I'll know the two wings of the bird are flapping. See? Then I'll know Bhakti and Jnana finally came together. That the teachings make you as wet and moist in the eyes, and as devotion, as devout in the heart, as seeing and hearing pretty music with fine sentiments and nice images. See, so this is what we mean by intensity. See, it's got to come together. These nadis have got to come together in a big way in you. You have to put forth effort daily to keep those open. If you have come this far and you've got the basic channels open, say, I believe. See? But the belief has to turn into faith. And you have other prerequisites satisfied, like this chart has been illustrating. Now keep them open and intensify. See? Our founder, Alexikson, used to call me, I was in my 20s and 30s, he'd call me and say, I need clarification. I would laugh because he was the one that clarified things. But then he'd say, clarification and then intensity. Those were his two favorite English words as far as spiritual practice went. First to clarify, then to intensify. Because you don't want to intensify an impure mind. They say, be careful what you ask, right? Ask for. So find you get God's ear, and you want to talk into it, and you start asking for things. And if he gives those to you, it's going to ruin your life. That's why most people never get their prayers answered. Even good prayers. Oh no, you're not ready for that yet. You see, can I have that jar? No, not yet. Let me see it. Hey, it's empty. Now you can have it. So you don't intensify an empty jar. You see, you don't accept the outer beauty of a thing and forget about its inner nature being formless. See? If you're just accepting forms left and right, then that's called materialism. It's called loving matter. See, it's calling sensuality and so forth. But when you realize the thing can be left as it is, and it's probably happiest left as it is, and you'll be happier too leaving it as it is, then you've got equanimity, you've got non-duality, you've got inaction, not just action. Inaction is as important, if not more so, than action. Right action would be nice, if you did engage in action at all, but inaction is a whole other animal, see? And that's what you're going to get by seeing it's empty. Oh, I think I'll be empty. See how that feels, see? So, when we think of japa of the mantra, we must repeat it with intensity. We must have that kind of intensity in our spiritual life. Now, let's go on, because we need to hopefully finish this chart this is the fifth and final class of the series called Food, Prana and Sadhana, right? So we're getting, you can see how we've gotten into the sadhana part of it. Sadhana has to do with these kinds of things. You don't just hear about it and say, oh, that's nice, you see, or I like the teachings, but you must practice them. A practitioner is a very wonderful name to pin on yourself. Not just, I have some knowledge, but I practice. See? So in this case, you can see some of the practices we're getting into is worship, contemplating scriptures, self-surrender, and even begin to perform your work as worship. So that's quite important in order to discover the secrets, the higher secrets of spiritual life. That food turns into prana, and prana has a connection with psychic prana, and psychic prana has a connection with Shakti. Now you're aware of consciousness as it moves through the nadis. Back here, it was only moving outward into the body, and that was resulting in fatigue and death. See? Body wears out. That's all you had. See? So now you're seeing the interconnection to prana, and breath is the first sign of that. Studying your breath, and then pretty soon the psychic prana means my thoughts move, and they can move inward too. What do you think an intellectual is? It's not something who's just, or an inventor, has got some sort of psychic prana going on there. May not be self-surrender yet. He might be surrendering, connecting the prana to his ego for purposes of making money or being famous. But still, there's a kind of form of subtle prana moving inward in channels that turns him into a great visualizer. See, today's imagination should become tomorrow's visualization, and tomorrow's visualization should become next week's realization, is how my Swami used to put it, my guru. From imagination, turn that into visualization, and visualization, turn that into realization. Or he often said, don't just idealize the real, realize the ideal. He had a sort of Swami Vivekananda turn of mind, you see, and could play with English words that way. Don't just idealize the real, like, oh, you're so beautiful, God, we're very impressed down here, I can tell you. But turn it into, I and my Father are one. See, I'm going to realize the ideal, not just idealize the real. So that kind of realization is happening on an intense level as you work towards the realization of Shakti power in everything. You became aware that there was prana in everything, but now you see it has a much subtler essence going on. She flows too. She's called Kundalini Yoga when she flows. But her flow is much, much different than anything else that moves or appears to move. So that would bring you to this ideal of meditation on the Ishtam, you see. And here we get into the new part of this chart to finish it off. Envision him, her, fully. Now remember, you've ended up with intensity, so take the intensity from the japa of the mantra and turn it on meditation. Japa and meditation go together so nicely. In fact, if you join the Ramakrishna order, some 5 million beings strong now or more, then that's what they're giving you basically. Here's the mantra, and inside the mantra is the name of the Ishtam, Sri Ramakrishna or Sri Sharada. Now you must repeat their name and meditate on their form. So here's a great step in between these extreme polarity, you see. One, world, action, death. The other, transcendent reality and transcending the illusion of death. In between, there's this friend in high places. See? There's, you get to the Father through the Son, or to the Mother through the daughter, in this case, in Shakti power. See? So you want this intensity to continue on and fully envision him or her. This is God with form you're talking about, not just any old form outside. This is where your visualization is going to kick in, you see. And that's going to help you realize the ideal. Further on, you want to move beyond form. A very beautiful teaching. You know, that strange saying, if you see the Buddha on the road, kill him. You see, you know how they meant that now, if you take teachings like this. You don't want to get attached to any form along the way whatsoever. In fact, these great forms themselves are asking you to move through them and beyond them, to have the experience of non-duality that they had, so you too can be one with the Father. Be perfect as thy Father in heaven is perfect, right? So that's a very important, probably ultimate, if not penultimate, state of realizations, to have your first taste of formlessness. You don't want to just taste sugar, you do want to be sugar. So, because those who have only tasted sugar don't know the bliss of being sugar yet. That's why they say, I just want to taste sugar. So in that way they want to realize the essence of consciousness, which is like the sweetness shooting through sugarcane juice. Shooting through and through. It's permeating it, which is a nice word in English. Permeation. Totally inundated. Like a flood. Wets everything. Saturates everything. So this is something about meditation on the Ishtam, which is right here as you turn the corner. Psychic prana has now turned your work into worship, has turned your labor into love, is how Swamiji put it. And he said, oh, how peaceful the mind, how effective the soul, if they could only do their work as worship, if they could only do their labors in love. That's the kind of soul he wanted to see out and about in this world. So meditate on Ishvara. One way of putting that is Kali Kali Borshana Kali Kali Borshana Par Par Gyan Namamrita Par 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 Gyan Namamrita Jari hate pan take bashana Kali Kali Borshana Kali Kali Borshana. So, oh, blissful self caught in mundane diversions and vain pursuits, utter the sweet yet powerful name of Kali, the Divine Mother of this infinite universe. Grasp the non-dual knowledge of her wisdom feet with the strength of your subtle insight. And then meditate deeply on her all-encompassing, all-pervasive presence. Basically what the first verse of this beautiful Kali Bhajan says. It's Kali Kirtan. So that should be enough to help you muster some intensity, to have some real feeling inside. People are always touchy-feely outside, see, with everything in their life, with friends, with animals and pets and this and that, touchy-feely outside. But what about the real, true internal feeling and the kind of intensity that abides there between the human soul and the divine soul, between the Jivatman and the Paramatman? That's what you see in Sri Ramakrishna, what launched him into samadhi all the time, without almost the slightest provocation. Any little thing could set him into samadhi. Take him to the wax museum, samadhi. Take him to the zoo, he sees a lion, samadhi. See someone sweeping a broom, samadhi. See? Slightest provocation. Because Durga rides the lion, and because the wax museum reminds him of how all of this is made of wax, and there's a light inside of it. And the man sweeping reminds him of where the straw was grown in the province of Navadvip, where Chaitanya lived in 1400. Those are the connections in his nadis that are going on that make him go into samadhi. Open to the slightest suggestion of spiritual life. We have to understand this, you see, and then we're going to have to develop that capacity to open ourselves. I surrender my life, all my experiences and my entire soul at the fearless feet of my Guru, we just sang. If Swami Vivekananda felt about that, and he's a Nityasiddha, a perfect soul, how much more should we begin to strive for that kind of feeling? Say, oh, he's a perfect soul, he doesn't need a guru, he doesn't need this and that. What nonsense are you uttering? See? When you're realizing the ideal, when you get everything that comes with that, emptiness is a stage, now you're getting fullness. See? Next time you look in the jar, oh my God, it's full of jewels, you see. They weren't there before. So the difference between emptiness and fullness is substantial. And in key there, grasp the non-dual wisdom of her feet, right? So the Dharma, you see, when you hear these teachings, there's the capacity, there's the retainment. See? That becomes your life's work. And therefore you turn the corner, and Shakti becomes your moving force. You were animated by food when you were a fool. See? You're animated by prana when you were a hatha yogi. You're animated by psychic prana when you became an intellectual, or you understood with intelligence. Now you're animated by Shakti power herself, and you're free, see? And you're impervious to any of the problems that happen at all other levels. You're not having to purify, control, and raise your prana anymore. Frequenting holy company would be like whitewashing a wall inlaid with mother of pearl. See? Not necessary, right? The paint just rolls off the mother of pearl part. That's how Sri Ramakrishna said. First you need holy company, after that, I'm fine now. I think I'll wander away into bliss. And if I see any of my friends along the way, I'll weep and dance with them. But I'm free on my own. I'm free. And freedom tastes of reality. You got that one. Because we're all kind of hippie guys from the 60s, you see, the three of us.
Rock and roll.
There were some profound lyrics came through. And so, we turn the corner then from work as worship to meditation on Ishvara. Now let's look at, since we just looked at meditation on the Ishtam, let's go further and see the fourth element of this chart that Holy Mother talked about. She wants, once you have that kind of attainment under your belt, she wants your compassion for others. She used to say that. She said, oh, now that you've received the mantra of Ramakrishna and you're free and you're on your way to the goal, won't you stop and help others a little on the way? See? That was her thinking, you see. Otherwise the ego is still a little selfish there, isn't it? Well, I think I'll just take this great freedom and devil take the hindmost. Mm-hmm. But Swami Vivekananda wasn't into that kind of thing. He said, let's put off our moksha, our liberation for a while, so that we can serve others, work as worship. We can have our liberation any time we want now, because we're in Ramakrishna's hands. See, we're Mother Kali's children. So why don't we just put that off for a lifetime or two, and bhakti and mukti and all that, and let's get down here and do the real karma yoga. Let's really serve and help others. So our hats are off and our hearts are out to everyone who does. See, who does that with constancy and sincerity. See. So important then to have this idea of wisdom as compassion. First bubble there, destroy mental distractions. Here's where I can probably stop craning my neck and pull up my own copy of this. So first there you see under wisdom is compassion, destroy mental distractions. That is the most compassionate thing you can do for yourself. You want to put brooding to death first. Your mind, which is focused and natural, is perfectly happy when it is so. It's sattvic. So where did this rajas come from, this restlessness? Where did this slothfulness come from? Where do these weights come from? Why can't I keep my mind at one even keel, you see? And my thoughts buoyant, Sri Ramakrishna used to say. Rainwater seeks the lowest place to settle, he said. You know what kind of thought that is? But hot air balloon rises all the time. You know what kind of thought that is. So speaking about the hot air balloon of the mind, he wants you to gain this first facet of Jnanodaya Yoga, it's called. It's one of the yogas that Holy Mother brought back in this time, Jnanodaya Yoga. Jnana is wisdom, Daya is compassion. So the yoga of wisdom as compassion. First, use it on yourself. See? Put your own mask on before helping others. You've heard it before, but this is very practical, not only when you're at 40,000 feet elevation in physical ether, but it's very, very practical when you're at 100,000 feet spiritual ether. You want to put on that mask first. That is, free your mind of distractions. There's no reason for them to be there. Kick them out of your mind. And stay one-pointed all the time. Be at peace, if you want to put it that way. Then the peace that passes all understanding will come to you, of its own accord. Sri Ramakrishna used to say again, the kid's causing a riot in the house, and he won't settle down, shut him outside the door in the backyard. Don't worry, ladies, it's fenced. And he can't get out. So shut him outside, you see, and then he'll go on being a terror, a menace. Then darkness starts to fall, he changes. See, he's not the king of the block anymore, darkness is. Devils are, evils are, fear is. See, he comes knocking on the door. You don't let him in, you see, until he settles. Will you be good? Will you settle down? He's not talking about mothers and children, he's talking about the mind and you. How you kick it out, until it will behave you. You want control of your mind first and foremost. That's why, actually, if the prana is erratic, then the mind's going to be erratic. See? If the mind is already controlled, like a seer, his prana is already controlled. So you're looking outside in or you're looking inside out, and you're seeing with your viveka, with your discrimination, the difference between a balanced, realized soul and a person who has not even ascended past the first 2 or 3 levels or limbs of yoga. See? So something about destroying mental distractions, which I'm emphasizing very heavily here for us in this day and time. Just do it. Don't allow it anymore to ruin your life or to rule your life. It's not that hard to do. And it's one of those things where if you manage it, all of the rest of this can come in control. See? And if you don't manage it, then karma, you see, to pay. The devil to pay, as they say. Now the next bubble there, purify mind with knowledge. We just sang about him. Utter the sweet yet powerful name of Kali and grasp the non-dual knowledge of her wisdom feet with the strength of your subtle insight. So you have subtle insight now. Energy that's opening is beginning to open your third eye and other chakras on the way. See these spiritual vortexes. So you're beginning to have abilities. How nice. Spiritual abilities, I wish we had those, right? Because then everything else would be as if nothing. So that's where it all gets good. You see, that's where the spiritual path is maturing. You are maturing. Your discrimination, viveka, your detachment, vairagya, your samo and dhammo, inner peace and self-control, your uparati, ability to forbear ills and problems, your titiksha, titiksha, your ability to forbear problems, and uparati, your contentment, and samadhana, the ability to meditate on Brahman and nothing else. See, it's not going to happen if you haven't mastered these distractions and kicked them out of your mind and purified your mind, the nadis in your mind, with knowledge. Let nothing but wisdom, mother wisdom, flow along them, right? If you see anything else there, it's the mind police, right? It's the buddhi police, see? You kick them out. And until you're able to hold consciousness at that level. The last one there is serve God in mankind. So here are three facets of wisdom as compassion, the Jnanodaya Yoga of Holy Mother. It's one of the two yogas that she resurrected for modern times, very apropos and timely for us. The other one is called Mano Buddhi, the yoga of putting the mind together with intelligence. Those two yogas are facets that she taught and yogas that she resurrected for us. I remember hearing about them with some of my earliest Vedanta teachers who were also devotees of Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother. And I had never heard of them before. I thought Jnana, Bhakti, Karma, Raja, right? 4 yogas that Vivekananda brought to us. But then, Jnanodaya Yoga, Mano Buddhi Yoga. See, very beautiful the way she would synthesize and bring these to us. We have a whole chart on it that I can show you, and probably will on the mainland in this coming month. Now, there's a chart for you that is right there at the sadhana level, right? Before you control the prana, you frequent holy company, you select a guru, you get a mantra, now I have to practice, right? So this is where psychic prana kicks in, and these are some of the practices you do, which we looked at here. Some of them basic, some of them running deeper channels into you, towards your true self. And they're all a matter of concrescence. They're all adding on to you constantly. So you feel better and better about everything. See, let's feel better about ourselves. See, let's forget about the little self and realize our true self, because that's going to make everything better. In fact, it's going to make it best. Swami Vivekananda used to say, from good to better to best. Why shouldn't we have the highest in spiritual life? Isn't that what we're seeking? If you're not, what are you doing in spiritual life? You see, you want to stop uttering the mantra without intensity or knowing what it means? That's not going to get you very far, says Vedavyas, Vedanta. So the mantra is as if worthless unless you know its meaning and utter it with intensity. And if you have infused it with prana, see, prana and mantra are so much connected that way. Because you can't have intensity with your mantra if the prana isn't flowing that direction, you see. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. You fall asleep during mantra, what's wrong with you? See? So, wake up. Wake up the note that had its birth far off, where worldly taint could never reach. In mountain caves and glades of forest deep, whose calm no sigh for lust or wealth or gain could ever dare to break, where flows the stream of knowledge, truth, and the bliss that follows both. Sing high that note, Sannyasin bold. Say, Om Tat Sat. Om. Yes. First verse of Swami Vivekananda's Song of the Sannyasin, which all of you know by heart, all the verses, right? Or are working on them. So that's that note of the mantra. Infuse it with prana, infuse it with devotion. Cry tears for God. Forget what other people say. See? Let tears flow copiously from your eyes. What use these fingers if I don't use them to do the mantra? These fingers that grasp selfishly after things, what use are they if I don't use them to do the mantra. That's the beginning line of one song. And it goes on, taking every other part of the body and saying how futile it is to have a human body if you haven't consecrated it to divine reality from which it came. See? Your subtle body, your causal body, all the way up to your true self. Not the anatman, the ego, but the atman, pure conscious awareness, timeless, deathless, spaceless, causeless, and effectless, eternal, infinite, ever free and never bound. That's what you're after. Any questions? All right, time for the break. But before we get to the break, then I think we should examine these quotes, which we haven't taken them all. We took this top one, and we took this one, pure mind is God. And then we also said this one, but this is rather ironically humorous. We should probably take it again. Those who have come to the Master and I have not assembled here for fun. They know how fortunate they are in getting a human birth. So if you get a human birth, you don't want to backslide. Possible you could take on other wombs, birth in other wombs. There are many wombs to take births in, Sri Krishna says in the Gita. He doesn't actually come out and say you could be an animal. You can revert back to an animal form, but isn't that rather inferred? He rather keeps it on the level of there are births in tamas, there are births in rajas, and there are births in sattva. So why bring humans and animals even into it? There are sattvic animals out there, and there are very tamasic humans. Mm-hmm. Isn't it? What's the body? It's the consciousness, right? And the consciousness is associated with the mind, so you might not even need to go in that direction. You can just say, I better take birth, make sure that this all goes right for me if I do take another lifetime, and seek sattva and seek sattvic birth, sattvic wombs. We call it a womb with a view. Speaking of humorous, you see, a womb with a view. That's how Elmer Fudd would put it. You see, and he's a great Vedantist. You see, we know that from the past. Popeye was also a great Vedantist. I am what I am, and that's all that I am. See, that was like one of the early non-dual mantras. So it's there, even in cartoons. But you don't even want to be there in the animal form for that, you see. The human form is where this marvelous Shakti power effloresces and takes you inward, you see. Ever deeper inward until inner and outer become a thing of the past for you, and there's just nothing but Brahman everywhere. The hailstone has fallen into the ocean and given up its final form, and now it is nothing but the ocean itself. The wave rose out of the ocean and said, I'm the ocean, and the other waves laughed at it. And it went down into a depression, you see, hollow. Didn't like being laughed at. Then the next time it came up, it said, I am water. See, it had meditated on the lotus wisdom feet of Mother. It came up next time, it didn't call itself the ocean, it called itself water. And all the other waves thought, that's a very profound wave there. He's right, we're all water. We may not be the ocean. We certainly shouldn't think of ourselves as just a wave that is born and dies hundreds of times. We should think of ourselves as water, the very essence of the thing. That's Atman compared to Brahman and Maya. You are that Atman, and as far as the individualized jiva, soul, is concerned, that's where to identify. Besides, you'll get in trouble calling yourself God in this world. Be crucified or something else, you see. So, we've not come here and assembled around Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother to have fun, you see. We've come here to realize the true self. Beautiful, she said that. Here, another quote to finish off, as we finish off this beautiful chart. Whatsoever you want to achieve, do it now. This is the right time. Through sadhana, the ties of the past karma are cut asunder. See? So she means basically, you have the energy now to do sadhana, then do it now, because it's not going to happen when you're 70 or 80, most likely. Your prana is going to wane, no matter how pure it is. Everyone must leave the body. And you do that through the prana. The prana helps the soul exit the body. It helps it go into dream state tonight and into deep sleep state. That psychic prana kicks in after the prana, you see. So it's the same at the time of leaving the body. The prana should be under your control enough so that you can get out of this body without any problem and move towards higher consciousness. If not fully realized already, then pick yourself a very high birth. If you're coming back here, pick yourself a sattvic womb with a view, whatever the case. You see, make sure that you have prana under your control and you understand that dynamic. Because as you sit there, meditating, silent, in peace and contentment, billions of souls are flowing past you in the river called samsara pragbara. Millions of souls are flowing past you to their next birth in ignorance, clueless. But there you are, poised in that flow, unmoving, you see. I am Atma Brahma, where rolled the stream of knowledge, truth, and the bliss that follows both, we just said. That's Kaivalya Pragbara. That's the dam of souls that know themselves. They stand stationary in the midst of all their flows and watch billions of souls flow outward towards other wombs. And they try and convince others, don't go that way. Come here, sport in consciousness with me. Haven't you learned anything in those several million lifetimes you took in suffering? When are you going to wake up? There's a song in India, mind, wake up, you must. It's the first line of the song. You see. So this is the right time, do it now, she says. Now let's look at these 4 quotes in the bottom. You must approach holy beings with the proper attitude. Next, dive deep with the noble ideas you receive from them. Then turn to help and serve others. That pretty much explains everything that Holy Mother wants you to do in a nutshell. Approach holy beings, isn't that holy company, right, on this chart? Then make sure it's with the proper attitude. So your prana is going to have to be in your control, so you're not erratic in your thoughts. Then dive deep with the noble ideas you get from them. From where? From the scriptures and the seers. See? Dive deep, O mind, into the ocean of God's beauty. If you descend to the uttermost depths, there you will find the gem of love. It's a beautiful poem by Kabir. The next line is, go seek, O mind, go seek Vrindavan in your heart, where with his loving devotees Sri Krishna sports eternally. And the final line is, light up, O mind, light up wisdom's shining lamp, and let it burn unceasingly within your heart. Who is it that guides the body of your boat, the boat of your body across this solid earth? It is your Guru, says Kabir. Meditate on his holy feet. Beautiful, huh? A man could sit and write 3 verses like that and sing it. See? Right out of his own inner wisdom. See? Doesn't need any influence from anyone else to do that. Free, now wants to express it and leave it behind for posterity for hundreds of years. So, receive those noble ideas from stotrams, from bhajans, from wisdom chants, from slokas, from sutras, from surahs of the Quran, other wisdom traditions too, and then dive deep with them, and then, after you realize the import, turn and serve others. This is Holy Mother's yoga. She says further, perform your sadhana by meditating upon the Lord. On that day on which you have the right mood, you will have meditation spontaneously. We were talking about that just today at the little mountain ashram near here. about how meditation is such a difficult and subtle yoga to attain to any degree, or to master, what to speak of that. So it's basically very difficult to keep up a meditation practice daily and then for 30, 40 years, see? The way I've done, see? Or 50 years the way our teacher did, or 70, 80 years the way Swami Sheshananda, my guru, did, kept it up the whole time. So that's perseverance, one of her favorite words, see. First you're going to have to just do it every morning, and maybe every night too. Hour here, hour there. And pretty soon you're going to want to expand to 2 or 3 hours. And then after that you're going to go on your 8-hour daily retreat meditation, you see, and expand yourself deeper and deeper in that art. So the point here being, perform your sadhana by meditating on the Lord. On that day in which you have the right mood, your meditation will come spontaneously. So it's sort of, at that point, it's just like, I think I'll sit, you see. I think I'll sit. That's it. It's not like my guru told me to do an hour a day, yada, yada, yada. I'm just going to sit and let this happen. You don't put any barriers. There are enough gross barriers in the way to meditation. You don't put any subtle ones there. The Advaita did that when he was walking in the wilderness. See, he just all of a sudden came upon him, sat right there, and meditated. It's time. This is the right time, right? She says. Whatever you want to achieve, do it now. So when it comes upon you, do it. If you wake up and you can't sleep at night, then go into your shrine and sit for an hour. Maybe she's trying to tell you something. See? Trying to open a nadi for you. See? How frustrating it is to watch the soul stymie its own progress. See? Maybe when it's just ready to break through a granti, a knot in one of these channels, and it backs off, you see. And there she is saying, get up, meditate, you can do it right now, this is the time. Sending that message from the telegraph from one village to the other, but the monkeys have, broken the wire. Send out the crews. See? Make that connection so we can hear her messages again. Well, you see that each one of these chants is really associated with each 4 of these. Third one is, as the timepiece on the wall goes on ticking, so too you must continue to repeat God's name, thus you will attain to everything. That's mantra. So just like the clock goes on ticking on the wall, you see, unless it bothers you so much you stop it. You go on ticking off that mantra in the clock of your mind. See? And hopefully do it with meaning and intensity, thank you. Finally, he says, the master used to fall into samadhi upon seeing Mother Kali's image adorned by the 7-stranded garlands that I fashioned from full-blown jasmine and rangam flowers. I saw that in her, one of the Holy Mother books, and I thought, in a sense, it's not really a Dharma teaching or something. It was just so beautiful, I had to include it. See? This is an instance where Sri Ramakrishna walked into the Kali temple, and Holy Mother had found these flowers at their bud stage, and she put them in a bowl full of water, and they began to bloom right then. She strung them right away and put them around the image of Goddess Kali. I don't know if any of you watching have that kind of sensibility, but if you have had experiences in temples and in pujas and smelt that divine fragrance and seen that divine scene, then that's going to put you in a very deep mood right away. In fact, you can use that for tomorrow morning's meditation. Holy Mother, fashioning garlands, putting it around Kali's neck, Master coming in, gone. See? As soon as he sees her. You want to know how to cry tears for God? Well, there it is. See, it's the divine Leela you have to look back on and study. What put Sri Ramakrishna into samadhi? Basically, it was when Holy Mother fashioned these garlands of 7 strands with full-blown jasmine and rangam flowers and placed them around the neck of Mother Kali, unbeknownst to him. And he goes into the Kali temple because he's the Brahman priest there, and sees that, and didn't stop and just say, "Oh, how pretty." See? He went into samadhi. So purification, or sadhana for purification. This is how she would outline a regimen of spiritual discipline for you. See? You can see that it's replete with everything deep and powerful, and everything that is superficial and what most people are doing today in the name of a sadhana is absent from it. And so this is where the Vedanta starts. This is where the true Tantra is. This is where yoga gets proven. See the proving ground for yoga right there at this kind of higher purification. Now, in the few minutes remaining, I declare that there are none until after the break, because I don't want to start on the next swing of this chart until there's enough time to do it without interruption. So here, thank you, live streaming audience, for your kind attentions, and we will take 15 minutes and have a little sanctified food here called prasadam, which is part of our food Prana Sadhana class, right? This being the 5th and final class of that series. You'll see it in YouTube in the future, all edited if it needs any, and with beautiful images of Master and Mother as well. So here we will take that break and return in 15 minutes. Thank you. Aloha. Namaste. Welcome back to the second half and the final half of this 5-class series of food, prana, and sadhana. And we managed to get through that wonderful chart, purification is sadhana. And now we have going for us this, having gotten halfway through this chart on the role of food and prana in self-realization. We looked at that last week, taking up this whole swing here towards psychic prana. And now we want to move in this chart to Shakti power and its results. What you see there are meditation on Ishvara, attain to samadhis, and notice how samadhis is plural. We'll explain that in a bit. And then meditation on Brahman, and attain nirvikalpa samadhi, that's singular. Help souls out of bondage and reach this luminous mind, depicted here by Lord Shiva. That's a quick summation of the final leg of this journey we've taken from food to prana to psychic prana to Shakti. Shakti is going to launch us into a much deeper phase of our sadhana. You might say even beyond sadhana, you begin to have the actual experiences of meditation on Ishvara, which is here. Now, Shakti power, we might as well be adding here Ishvari, or at least make sure that we know that when we're talking about Shaktism or Divine Mother path, that Ishvara, the actual equality of that in a feminine form would be Ishvari. We want to make that note. These people have their ideals as Kali and Durga and Lakshmi and Saraswati, some 4 or 5 of the Radha. They're like called Prakriti Panchaka, or the 5 main forms of Divine Mother. Durga coming first, being this ancient tantric goddess, and then you have Kali and you have Parvati and Saraswati, and so these 5 main forms of the goddess are present there. So we would call that Ishvari. Now, in terms of this corner turn we've made here, then we're heading towards, and she is helping us to attain or begin to have the fruits of this spiritual experience, and that's called samadhi. These samadhis are probably best documented by Patanjali, the father of yoga, and we know that happens to be 4 different seated samadhis, and 2 of those are split into objective and subjective. So you actually really have 6 seated samadhis as far as Patanjali is concerned, all leading to this one unseated samadhi. Here, the Vedantic name is used, nirvikalpa. In yoga it would be called asampragyata, which would be seedless. So you have the seated samadhis, and you have this ultimate samadhi, nirvikalpa. If you want to take that Sanskrit word apart in Vedanta, nirvi is just like the word nirvana, or nirguna, beyond the gunas. If you put kalpa after that Sanskrit root there, nir, then it becomes beyond time, or beyond phases of time, beyond relativity, if you will. So that's the samadhi that takes you beyond everything, the gunas, and the wisdom samadhis are going to be necessary to attain. Usually, will be attained before you can get to see the samadhi. So this is pertaining to a very, very subtle, probably a better word would be causal or beyond causal level of your spiritual practice, leading into a phase of realization. Now, as that pertains to this chart, because we want to make sure we finish this up in this 5th class of this 5-class series, at the same time that we consummate this one, which has been our main chart all along. Really, when we looked at this last time, we looked at the right-hand side of the chart, and we saw how food with mantra gives you healthy prana, which goes in accord with this chart. And then that'll give you ojas, or this stored up spiritual energy, and that will consummate in tejas. So we looked at that and the quotes last time, and this is, of course, familiar ground for most of our SRV devotees because we've taught this chart quite a bit. It's been posted in every one of our kitchens in our ashrams, and people have looked at it very seriously and hopefully implemented it into their practice and become conscious and aware, open up nadis into its teachings, as we were saying in the first half. On the left-hand side, pretty much across from the chakras, which are listed in the middle as a symbol, and we went up from transmigration in cycles to worldly life commencing, and then cycles of transmigration that end and spiritual life proceeds, and we begin to work our way into what spiritual life is really telling us. And remember we talked about the maturation of devotion. If you think back to Holy Mother's purification, the sadhana chart, you'll remember that she wants us to intensify the mantra and meditate on Ishvara now, with that kind of single-pointed mind. And so that has to do with this practices that the devotee is implementing to mature their devotion. Quite often you'll go to at least the swamis and the teachers of the Ramakrishna order, and if you ask them, I've done the 4 yogas now, and I'm committed and I'm dedicated to my ideal, and everything seems to be going well. My karmas are getting neutralized. I feel great, spiritually speaking. What's next? And they'll say, increase your devotion. So this is the doorway, son to the father kind of doorway that is being explained here or revealed here on this chart, that when the psychic prana is really flowing and Shakti is in command of things via your self-surrender and your study of her wisdom and your worship, then you turn this corner and really you have this maturation of devotion that is playing a great part in removing all obstacles to having samadhi. This is where the 2 wings of the bird, as we said, are flapping furiously and launching the soul out of Maya or samsara. And that's going to be facilitated very much by this meditation done with the 2 wings of the bird. Wisdom and devotion. You can see how the two are really coming together here in a big way. In fact, there are songs about that. Here's a beautiful illustration of one. Namaste Jagachinja Mana Swarupe Namaste Mahayogini Jnana Rupe Namaste Sadhanandananda Swarupe Namaste Jagatarini Traye Durge. These are verses of the Ambika Durga Stotram. It's from the Vishvasara Tantra, one of the Tantra scriptures, singing about Divine Mother of the Universe. It says, I bow down devoutly to the true refuge of all beings, who along with Lord Shiva destroys ignorance and soothes the miseries of relative existence. O thou, in whom the universe resides and who permeates entirely the universe, your lotus feet are most worthy of worship. And the hymn goes on to say, for those who look within, your excellent form is the true object of meditation. So you find Shakti flowing inside you. It's almost very natural to think of her as feminine. It's natural to think of her as wisdom flowing as feminine, a wisdom goddess and so forth. This whole side of God with form in Shaktism or Divine Mother and you really can't say that it's not there in Vaishnavism as Radha and as Shaivism as Parvati and so forth. That Mother is really fully on the field then, doing battle with any remaining negativities and removing any vestiges or shrouds of subtle ignorance that may be clouding your vision of higher reality and your experience of having samadhis. And this is really where her grace figures into the whole thing. And it goes on to say, you are the true object of meditation because yoga, jnana are perfectly embodied in you. So yoga as practice and jnana as wisdom perfectly embodied in the Mother upon whom you're meditating. That's 3 of the main 4 yogas. Meditation, Dhyan yoga. Gyan yoga is wisdom yoga, and then yoga itself, called Raja or Patanjala, 8-limbed, Ashtanga if you will, 8-limbed yoga, are all perfectly embodied in Mother, is the beautiful sentiment or truth in this verse. You are the consummate yogini. That's why saying, Namaste Mahayogini. You're the consummate yogini, I salute thee. The auspicious one, even the Lord, means Shiva, turns blissful and gets delight upon beholding you. So just the very look of her, you see the very vision of her and so forth, automatically gives him bliss. O Savior of the universe, Mother Durga, protect us eternally. So it's a beautiful verse. There are several of them from the Durga Stotram in the Vishvasara Tantra. So you see those illustrated in that way in musical form. And so that they go hand in hand with the scriptural, which to some people would maybe seem a little dry or incomplete. They're gaining wisdom from it, but they have something burning in their heart, or they want to have a vision of Mother. They want to see her. They want to be one with her. They want to sport, just like the Vaishnavas would with Krishna and Ram, and the Shaivites would with Shiva. They want to sport with that most consecrated and beautiful of all forms. And this is again back to this idea of visualization, right? You have to be inwardly oriented to turn today's imagination into tomorrow's visualization, and then have that turn into realization. There's other beautiful songs. I think we even might have sung one last week about, oh mind, come with me, let's go into the shrine of the heart, leave everyone else outside, and I'll worship you there. And I'll leave my senses behind, because I know you can't take the eye or ear into that shrine, inmost shrine. The senses have to end, You may have subtle senses that you can experience that with, like in Dream Tonight. And then he says humorously at the end, oh, but I'll bring my tongue, because when I see you, I'll have to sing your praises. See? Beautiful song about Mother in the Mother tradition. So something about maturation of devotion to launch us in this further trajectory up inwards. Inward ascension, we'd say. The cessation of new karmas, remember us mentioning that? The karmas that are new, you're going to want to take care of them first, because they're beginning to take away too much of your time, like fires, putting out little fires, they say. Kind of astonishing at first that your old karmas will persist longer, but that's usually the way of it. You have to kind of reach peace of mind first, so that these new fires are getting put out. Then you can concentrate, you see. And if you can concentrate, you can intensify that yogic fire. We were talking about that today too, in the case of Swami Vivekananda, how he had this yogic fire. He said, I can go up to the Himalayas, all I need is a scripture and the Himalayas and my yogic fire, and I'll be fine. It's all I need. And he probably could do away with the scripture, just because it's all in his head. But this yogic fire was how he burned away all the ignorance on a collective level in humanity, and opened up channels himself, which were people. I mean, when we open up channels, it's our it's our own personal nadis, right? But when a soul like Vivekananda opens channels, it's people that he's opening up. The whole thing, not just one channel. You become his channel. Yeah, so, and that's called dedication and so forth. Then you can meditate too. You can concentrate, meditate, which is, remember, we're in two places here, but consummating both these charts in the final hour here. And intensify yogic fire, then you can destroy all old karmas. You're going to need some real powerful inner ability on that intensification level or intensified level to be able to do away with the old karmas, because they're rather nagging and tend to cling and stick. Hard to find, for one thing. This is why you took a guru back earlier, because he may not even immediately tell you about your old karmas. He can read them on your features quite often if he's a real master like Sri Ramakrishna. But he might not tell you about them because, well, let's let him take care of his new karmas first and get everything prepped and ready, and then we can, when the old karmas come, we can deal with those with these higher practices. One of them, again, being meditation. So you get to your old karmas that way, and remember about old karmas, although they may be hard to see, but Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother guided people who were reaching their last lifetime. There's one of the Swamis, for instance, of the Ramakrishna order, one of the direct disciples, was having his first enlightenment. And of course some of the Hindu men and women that came to him were partial incarnations of gods and goddesses. So they were beings who hadn't yet transcended the realm of the gods. So when they're born in humans, they're born as very powerful beings, or very deep beings. So Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother had experience with taking people that were advanced and giving them the next higher level of their realization, helping them win that ground. It's just very hard to win. It's like to get past the three centers to the heart is difficult for most people. You transcend the ancestors. But to get past the heart into the throat and third eye is another level of difficulty. And there's a very subtle barrier between the third eye and the Sahasrara, using the body as a physical example, this as a sort of a template for it. Very, very difficult to penetrate through the third eye and get to the Sahasrara chakra, fully illumined souls. Like we were reading last night about Vivekananda's Mahasamadhi on July 4th, and how the scriptures say that if when you pass, you penetrate through that and arrive at the Sahasrara chakra, that's how the fully illumined souls exit out of their body, out of this topmost center, inmost center would be the way to put it, really. And that's why they say, the scriptures even mention sometimes there's a little blood in the eyes and the nostril, and maybe even on the lip a little bit, because such a rush of energy had gone up. Shakti power had gone up and penetrated through and spat out the body, as he would say. He said that in a dream to one of his fellow monks later on. Showed up in front of him in the subtle body and said, I spat out the body the other day. See? This was a Swami in a different part of India, so he didn't know Vivekananda had even passed yet. So he had a vision right there on the path in front of the quarter he was staying in. Vivekananda walked up to him and didn't find out later that Swamiji had passed, but he already was there in advance to tell him, I spat out the body. So when you do that, then sometimes the scriptures mention this. So my point being here, to exit out of this highest, most center is very, very rare and very, very powerful thing to do. And old karmas that are in the way will have to go. So that's what I was actually starting to say, is that these old karmas that are penultimate to that realization, the getting rid of them, you shouldn't think of them as something being very, very difficult. Just think of them as being very subtle to see. Once you see them with all that you have under your control now, you see, now that you have all of this arsenal of spiritual weapons and tools that you can rely on, then you see that these old karmas are like burnt ropes. See, along the way of your sadhana, you actually had already burnt most of them, and the only thing that's left for them is just the thought of their existence. See, that's what's impeding you. You're holding a thought of something that was gone already. It's like a burnt rope. It can't bind you anymore, but it still looks like a rope, you see. Let's take another example. You're looking up at the stars in the sky, and many of those have already expired, right? The light is still coming at you because it's such a distance. So what you're seeing there is a non-star. It's not really in existence anymore, but the light is taking so long to travel that you're still seeing it there as a star. It's an illusion. Star is gone long ago. In that same way, that karma was gone long ago, but it's like a burnt rope. So you're still holding a thought of it. So this is how subtle it gets to penetrate through old karmas at the level they're speaking here in the tantric teachings, and the level we're talking here in the Vedantic teachings. Somebody wrote me today and asked, she's actually a young lady back in the East Coast who's studying quantum physics, and she's very interested in Vedanta and wants to know all about it. And she wrote and asked the relationship between yoga and Vedanta, and I said there's hardly a better one in existence. As Vedanta is not a practice, it's just a declaration of truth. And there may be little shades of practice in it, but it's at that very high level that we're just talking about. But yoga definitely takes you from the very root, if you need it, and introduces you to the prana, and then to the psychic prana, and then to the mind, and so forth. And it does the whole 8-limb thing for you. So it's a practice. It's a yoga of practice, and there's hardly a better one in existence to take if you really want to go the full route with spiritual life. But Vedanta sort of waits with it. So waits for it, for you to come to this realization that is the Vedanta, that is the Upanishads, the truth stated there by realized souls. They may have done their practice long ago, but now they're arrived and they're giving you this final summation. That's the Upanishads. So the advantage of having both the Upanishads and yoga and putting it together is very profound. It's a great path. So I was writing her back about this, how quite often that's what many of us are doing, whether we know it or not. Those of us who gain the boon of Vedanta, and then look at the divine couple and see how tantric they are, we begin to put this together over time. Really, our path is really Vedic and tantric both. The two rivers are flowing side by side and mingling their waters, as I've often said. And one side is more of a devotional practice side, and the other side is more of a wisdom knowing side. Tattva Gyan and Upasana Dhyan are words that you could put to those two paths. Tattva Gyan, the knowledge or wisdom of inner principles. Upasana Dhyan, meditation on the deities. See, beautifully put. That's sort of like Vedanta and Tantra, putting them together, or Vedanta and yoga. Because yoga and Tantra also have a very fine mix, like in Tibetan Buddhism and so forth. You have these are what's called hybrids that work. You see, we know they're hybrids that don't work very well, but these are a couple in time, as far as religion and philosophy and spiritual practice go, that really worked. See, and are still working today. All right, so destroy all karmas, then you get to this tejas level. You can transmit the teachings to others. When Holy Mother already told us in this previous chart, in the last half, she said, now turn and help others, right? So you get yourself free, or as free as possible, and then you help others along the way. And you can do that with her wisdom compassion path. That is actually the greatest compassion, is to teach them teachings. And who concurs with that? Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says very directly at the end, those who teach my wisdom teachings, I consider that to be the highest path, the best thing you can do, and the best sacrifice of all, is to teach the Jnana Yoga to others. That's Holy Mother's Jnanodaya Yoga. You don't just have compassion for their poor predicament. you put that together with teachings that are going to get them out of their predicament, if and when they will implement them. It's like, welcome to my world kind of idea. As Ramakrishna used to say, my eyes have become red blowing on the waning coals of your spiritual practice. See? So it's not an easy path to try and awaken people from the sleep of ages. With all that karma, all those samskaras. To convince them even is hard. What to speak of actually awaken them to the higher truth. So this is the role you have to hold if you want to transmit teachings to others. And there are things you'll have to take on to do that. Speaking about the marvelous Vivekananda last night and today in his Mahasamadhi time, how he did that for the collective consciousness. He shifted awareness in the collective consciousness. That's an amazing feat, you see. Unprecedented, really. The only person who did that before him was Ramakrishna in his 12-year sadhana. He paved the way by changing human consciousness, by his very presence on earth, so that Vivekananda could then come along and take that power that came from Sri Ramakrishna's 12-year sadhana and apply it to the world. And a lot of it was applied right here to the West, to you, to us. This is what we've been given. And if you're, they used to say, freedom comes with responsibility. It's not just given to you and, oh boy, see, you can dance off and cut capers. As Ramakrishna used to say, see, go cut capers, dance and sing. See, freedom, real freedom, comes with very deep responsibility. So part of that kulyana, as we say in a way, is ability to transmit teachings. And in the meantime, before you're ready to do that, you can share them. That's how Sri Ram puts it. Sri Ram, we sing about him sometimes in such a beautiful way, when we meditate upon him, which is actually very apropos to what we're just studying here. When we sing to him, Tulasi dasa kaha kar jodi, Tulasi dasa kaha kar jodi, Bhavasagar kar paroji, Bhavasagar taro paroji, Bhavasagar paro taroji, Bhavasagar taro paroji, Bhavasagar paro taroji, Bhavasagar taro taroji, Etani vinati raghunandana se. This is my prayer to thee, O Raghunanda. Beautiful bhajan by Tulsidas, whose name rather resounds in the airs of fame, and as far as music that has crossed the border from India into the West. Tulsidas has some very beautiful, profound songs. He was a lover of Sri Ram, but he also loved the Divine Mother. He wrote a couple songs to her, and of course Shiva. So he was very consummate, integral kind of devotee of God, with form. But if you want to say Tulsidas was only a lover of form, then you forgot to sing this verse. Apne pankaj kaj pinjar mein, apne pad pankaj pinjar mein, Chita hamsa hamara vitauji, and so forth and so on. They end up singing the whole song. Basically, this is my prayer to thee, Raghunanda, kindly destroy my mind's tendency to perceive duality. Does he sound like a dualist to you? If he's praying for the demise of duality in his mind, so he can see the non-dual truth. See? So This is another great, like Kabir, another great wisdom singer of devotional songs, see, that puts together all the yogas and all the ideals into one beautiful expression. Incomparable kind of ideal there. So then you'll get to these transcendent experiences. Now let's segue away from this, having completed this upward trajectory twice in two different ways, and up the chakras as well, back to our psychic power jog here. Shakti power, psychic prana to Shakti power jog, getting into these higher levels of connecting mind and prana together. See, that's the name of the chart, right? Pretty much why I fashioned this chart to go with the topic of food, prana, and sadhana. Connecting the living prana to the luminous mind. Here's your luminous mind, Lord Shiva, there. And so we're marching inward towards that consummate realization. If not consummate, then penultimate first. So penultimate means attain these samadhis, as we just talked about. If you attain these samadhis, then you've attained savitarka, savichara, nirvitarka, nirvichara, sasmita, and sananda. Those are these wisdom samadhis, bliss samadhis, and knowledge samadhis, and ripe ego samadhis. If you want to try and put them into English generally really quickly, that Patanjali says are the seated ones. Seated because they're in form. Wisdom is in form, the ego is in form, bliss is even experienced in form, as far as we're concerned. That bliss that is experienced outside of form would be Ananda Sagara, the ocean of bliss itself, where the hailstone already gave up its form when it fell. But as far as we're concerned in the embodied condition, there's a Sananda Samadhi that gives us great bliss. You probably saw Sri Ramakrishna or read about Sri Ramakrishna having it all the time. See, that was when he was in his very blissful mode. But there are also modes he went into that were very, very impersonal, very, very indrawn, and he was gone for hours, sometimes days, in this indrawn samadhi. Especially when he first had it at the behest of Tatapari, his Advaita teacher, who was amazed to see Ramakrishna go into it and stay in it for so long, because he had taken 40 years to even attain a bit of it. And then he teaches this man, this crazy Kali priest, tantric seeming, who comes off the steps of the Dakaneshwar temple. He says, "You look like a very qualified, let me teach you the non-dual truth." Ramakrishna says, "Let me go ask my mother, if I can." And so Tatapari is thinking, what a strange guy. He's full grown, seeing mature and everything, and he's got to go ask his mother. So Sri Ramakrishna disappears into the Kali temple. Comes out. His mother says, "It's okay, you can teach me that." So he consulted Mother Kali, and then Tatapari took him off into the Panchavati, the grove of trees, which is hardly there anymore if you go to Calcutta, but you see a semblance of it there. And back in there, had him started instructing him how to get into, past the samadhis, into the non-dual samadhi. Sri Ramakrishna did it in a matter of a short time. Not sure, remember, maybe 3 days it took him to actually get into non-dual samadhi, which is very, very rare. And, blew Tatapari's mind. Probably wasn't an expression we used back then, but it applies now. Because he was very much impressed with Sri Ramakrishna's ability to do that. So that as a sort of an attending story on this, finishing up this class, this series, and this chart, which was specially prepared for it. So when you get to that level of meditation on Ishvara, form has got to dissolve. See, we read that last night in Swamiji's last days, which we read out during our observance of his Mahasamadhi, that basically you'll go through all forms and arrive at this formless non-dual state. So you'll experience these samadhis. Then how long that will take before you have nirvikalpa samadhi is going to depend on karmas, samskaras, old karmas, capacity, ability, time, mother's grace. There's a whole host of things that is going to dictate that. Could happen quicker or slower, and that doesn't mean you're more progressed or less progressed. If either one of those happens, it's just all up to Mother's grace, because you have arrived to Shakti power and she's operating everything now. See, Sri Ramakrishna used to say, when I saw Mother, then she used to sit me down in meditation. I hear my joints being locked. I could actually hear the sounds of my arms, elbows, knees being locked, and she wouldn't let me move. And she made me meditate for long, long periods of time in that position. Another time she said, whenever I did move, I felt like I was a bunch of sticks strung together with string, and she was the puppeteer. See? So she would take me here and there. So he was having these experiences after his self-surrender, full self-surrender to his Ishtam, Kali, his Ishvari form, Ishtadevi, you call it, Ishtadevata if it's the male form, like in the case of Tulsidas with Ram. So Ishtadevi, and in order to have these samadhis, to set up pure meditation on Brahman alone. Samadhana, the fifth of the 6 Vedantic jewels and the 4 treasures, is called samadhana. It's the ability to meditate on Brahman and nothing else but Brahman. It's very rare to be able to do that. Have you meditated on Brahman lately? Well, how did that go? Good luck with that. Let's try and meditate on formlessness, and the thought I'm meditating on formlessness comes. How do you get over that? To empty the mind out completely and enter into that, we might as well go back to Holy Mother's chart and her quote there. Meditate on Ishvara. When the time comes for you to have a meditation on Brahman, it'll happen naturally. Can't really plan it out. Sort of like bribe Divine Mother. Can I have Nirvikalpa Samadhi now? I'll sacrifice a buffalo. Or something like that. So you can't bribe Mother. Everything is in its own time. She knows the time, and you're hers. So that's how it's going to proceed, and that's going to be the best for you if you don't resist that. You just go with the flow. Another expression they didn't use way back then. So when you can meditate on Brahman and you start having those experiences, then and not until then can you have this Nirvikalpa Samadhi. For instance, Shankara knew about this very well and put it in these beautiful ways. Say in Nirvana Shatkam, right? I was helping someone learn part of that today, so I could sing it on the harmonium, but here there are 6 verses, Nirvana Shatkam. It means the 6 verses on Nirvana, which is this highest samadhi. Shankara wrote this as a real classic, and the final verse he consummates it all by saying, Aham nirvikalpo nirakara rupo vibhutva cha sarvatra sarvendriyanam nacha sangatam naiva muktir nameya nacha sangatam naiva muktir nameya chidananda rupaha shivoham shivoham chidananda rupaha shivoham shivoham. I have no form, I have no fancy. This is Vivekananda's translation. The all-pervading am I. Everywhere I exist, yet I am beyond the senses. Neither salvation am I, nor anything that can be known. I am pure consciousness. I am Shiva. I am Shiva. Shankara's beautiful stotram, last verse on called Nirvana Shatkam, so the actual experience of being one with Brahman, where all form has gone away, and this is how he expressed it in a sloka. See, this beautiful stotram. One of the few non-dual stotrams that you have, along with Hasta Amalaka stotram and a very few others, that express the inexpressible as far as it will go with words and music. It's very rare. I got very interested in stotrams when I learned bhajans in India, but when I started hearing the stotrams, I said, yeah, that's something I'd like to ruminate on. And the best way to ruminate on it is to memorize it and sing it, and then think about it afterwards. It becomes a part of you. It's part of the very fabric of your being. So you're not ever in lacking or have any scarcity of material, if you will, for meditating on the formless Brahman. You know, the suggestion even of that kind of higher wisdom is that way. So a nice way to express in music this ability, beyond abilities really, this arrival at attaining Nirvikalpa Samadhi. And you see, it says, help souls out of bondage. It's rather contradictory in a way, because you don't see bondage anymore. Yeah, we have to sort of understand this about souls that have had those higher experiences, that they're not seeing suffering, so they don't need compassion. They're not seeing the world as other than Brahman, so they don't have any ignorance. They're not seeing that you need help, because you're already Atman. This is how they see it, actually. So it's going to be a step down for them if you come up to them and say, help me, save me, save me. Well, yeah, well, go to the teachers, they'll save you, you see. Learn the Dharma. So it's rather a contradiction or a sort of conundrum when you say help souls at that level, because they know the world's unreal. They know the individual soul's not ultimately real. There's only one indivisible soul, not a bunch of individual souls. That's the truth that they've realized. So it's going to be hard for them to look at you as an indivisible soul that needs help, you see. And this is actually, say, take Christ Leela, you know, the play of Christ on the world. I mean, we call it a play on purpose, because it's not like they didn't actually suffer when they came here. Everyone suffers in the form, but you know, their suffering wasn't a charade or something. But they suffered from a very superlative level, like Sri Ramakrishna is saying. Somebody asked him, that cancer of the throat, doesn't that hurt? And Sri Ramakrishna said, only when I come down and talk to you. See, as soon as you go away, my mind goes back up to the feet of Kali, and I don't feel this anymore. See. Well, it's the same with Christ, right? I mean, if he goes and sees someone stoning an adulteress, or you know, he sees someone suffering, he would just say, you know, you've fallen into an error, just go and sin no more. So there's no judgment there. You know, there's no eternal damnation there. There's no sin there. Probably not even looking at a transgression there. He's just saying that you made a wrong turn on the path and just get yourself back on. You see, this is the way they actually see things. And it's hard to understand if you're born and raised only in the sort of morality and ethics atmosphere of present-day Christianity and Judaism to some extent. So you need to understand again the non-dual nature of things, don't you? I mean, you could just say, save me, see, and stay there. That's not what they want. You get to the Father through the Son. You don't stop at the Son. In fact, if you've gotten to the Son, you're probably already saved. So why are you lamenting, save me, you see? That's salvation, right? But beyond salvation is liberation, as the Vedantists are so fond of saying. So liberation is I'm free, I'm free. Freedom tastes of reality. So that is the real you've arrived at, the non-dual reality, Advaita Vedanta. That's what's its greatest message. And you find flavors and tastes and aromas of it in other religions, but nowhere is it focused on, like say in a non-dual stotram like that, right out of Mother India. Many times. That's been their understanding from the get-go, is that the soul is a parinama, free of change. That is, it's not parinama, the soul doesn't change, it's a parinama, it has no change in it. And a jativada, it never dies because it was never born. Now I could sing you the 5th verse. Na mrityor na shanka na me jati beta. Pita naiva me naiva mata ma janmaha. Pita is father, Mata is mother. I have no father and mother, he sings. I have no death because I was never born, he sings. See? He sang that just before the Aham Nirvikalpa verse, right? I am pure conscious awareness. I am Shiva, I'm Shiva. So it introduces us to the idea, if we haven't already been introduced, that these are the highest reaches, the loftiest reaches of pure conscious awareness. We have to introduce ourselves to this. Like I said last week, Mauna Kea back there behind us, you see. We have to go up 10,000 feet and acclimatize, then 11, then 12. Maybe have to come down, get rid of that headache, then go back, you see. Let our mules rest. Our mules are our mind, our ego, our chitta, you see. There's a great analogy play there, you see, but whatever the case may be, you need to acclimatize yourself to heights like that. And this is what I'm doing right now to help you do that. You hear, it's a nadi. See, it's a channel you run. Now you're aware of it. You're aware that someone did it. You're aware that's probably what you're looking at when you're looking at a realized soul, souls who did that. And you're aware that that's the rarest kind of experience to have. And now you're open to it. Just like that. So when it comes time for you to meditate and have samadhi, you will. Who can stop mother from giving her child what she wants to give? See? So, as I was saying about karmas, don't worry about those old karmas that seem so hard to get rid of. They're burnt ropes. When it comes to samadhi, claim it for yourself. Shankara, who's the author of this song, told us in Vivekachudamani, said, practice samadhi. He's like giving us permission. See? Practice samadhi. Practice having samadhi. So where you're sitting down and saying, I think I'll try and concentrate. Why don't you sit down next time and say, all right, it's time for samadhi. That ennobling thought might just open a channel straight to the river of consciousness flowing to the ocean of bliss. For you, see. At that moment, in that time. Never mind if you don't remember it when you come back. You're opening a channel, it might close up again, but these are subtle channels you need to open, and maybe you need to see them close and be without them. You know how that's how the illumined souls suffer. It's because they've seen God and then all of a sudden they can't anymore. They've seen their heart's desire and delight, and then all of a sudden she's gone. What's wrong with this picture, you see? You've had samadhi, and all of a sudden they have to come down to lower samadhis? Ho-hum, you see? Enough of wisdom, enough of dharma. Where's that nirvikalpa, you see? And this is what Sri Ramakrishna exemplified for us, if he exemplified anything, that mankind's true nature is samadhi. So you should be having it. It's not like get in there and have that fun. See, beings have not gathered around Master and I just to have fun, she said. And it's work, but it's not a work of the kind that is draining you of life. It's not that kind of work that's making you depressed. It's not that kind of work that's making you attached to money and possessions and family. the triple bondage. It's a kind of work that is subtle, inward moving, and culminating in something of the highest import for you. The very nature of your soul impinges on that, nirvikalpa. See? And there is no higher experience than that. That is the culmination of all experiences. If you ask Swami Brahmananda, Rakal, in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, he'll say, nirvikalpa, that's really the beginning of spiritual life. Wait, I thought all of this was the beginning. So it really means that when you have nirvikalpa samadhi, nothing but nirvikalpa samadhi exists or ever existed for you. You just weren't seeing it. You were in different stages of delusion, gross, subtle, or causal, as the case may be. And this was always your true nature, and it always will be your true nature, and it will never not be your true nature. So, what is left? Help souls out of bondage. We were talking about the sort of conundrum of that saying. So, by your very bones you shall teach. Sri Ramakrishna told Vivekananda that. He said, you will go and teach souls. And Vivekananda said, who am I to teach? And he said, don't worry about it. Your very bones will teach people. It is your very presence. You come to the West, people are being taught just by you showing up. Talk about opening nadis, or channels. That man, by his very presence, did so. He just had this ability, like a hot knife through butter, just to cut through people's ignorance and cause them to remember their past lifetimes on the spot. There are stories about people walking up along the streets of Chicago, New York, and so forth, and seeing this poster, Vivekananda, a Hindu monk, Hindoo. You see, the newspapers didn't even know how to spell it yet. The Hindu monk, you see. And just by seeing his picture on that poster, awakened. There are stories in our tradition about this. So, by his very presence, he will teach. So he doesn't have to open his mouth. One of his female disciples said, I went to see him. He opened his mouth. Truth came out. Then I went to see him again. He opened his mouth. Truth came out. I saw him toward the end of his life. Nothing but truth came out. You see. So he opens his mouth and he teaches by his very presence. So this is a person who's had nirvikalpa samadhi. So that's how they help other souls. Not by any effort on their part, although, as we're saying, he can change the collective consciousness of the world, and has, and is still. Give it time, because this is dense here, isn't it? It's very dense. Flesh is weak. Mind is slow. We need to return to that original mind that's lightning fast. And when it's lightning fast, who is there? Who's your mother? Shakti is your mother. Who's your mama? And so that's when things are happening at an accelerated speed, spiritually speaking, for you. Let's read that final quote under the luminous mind that we've arrived at. My young friend, the one who knows that imperishable one in which rest the mind, the prana, and the senses, verily becomes omniscient and enters into everything. The great Rishi Pipalada said that in the Prashna Upanishad to his young charge, his young disciple that came to him. My young friend, the one who knows that imperishable one, that is through nirvikalpa samadhi, knows the Atman, knows Brahman, in which rest the mind, the prana, and the senses, verily becomes omniscient and enters into everything. So the name of this series of classes has been Food, Prana, and Mind, or Sadhana. And that's what all of those rest, you see, there, in that imperishable Brahman. And we only need to espy them and bring them out. Upanishads say it's like extracting oil from sesame seeds. It's like knowing that there's fire potential in wood. It's like patina in copper. You ever put a penny or fallen on the bathroom floor and you put it on a shelf in the shower. See, a little while later, things turning green, from copper to green. Patina is in copper. Who would have thunk? See. Oils in sesame seed. Who would have known unless they collected them, planted them, gardened them, collected them, invented a press, and pressed a bunch of them to get a drop of oil. Who would have known that that nutritious oil was in that sesame seed? In the same way, who knows that this indivisible Atman is in everything, and is your very true nature. So that's what making connections from food and prana to the luminous mind is all about. In 5 classes, I hope you have benefited from them, and will do the requisite sadhana, spiritual discipline, in order to avail yourself of the dharmic wisdom that will free you, given self-surrender to the Shakti, whose wisdom it is. So here, and a little early, we will end with a chant and conclude our series of 5 classes on this subject. Om Bhadram Karnibhihi Srinayama Devaha Bhadram Pasyema Akshabir Yajatraha Stirairangayishtushtuvam Sastanuvir Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuhu Swasti Na Indra Vrida Shrabaha Swasti Na Pusha Vishwadevaha Swasti Nastarksho Arishtanemihi Swasti No Brihaspatir Dadatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we hear with these ears what is good and noble. May we see with these eyes what is uplifting and beneficial. And may we, while worshipping the Lord and Mother with healthy minds and bodies, live a life which is beneficial to ourselves and to all other beings. Om, peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om Hari